Time to move on to questions to the Minister for Education, and I call Mr Michael Copeland.
Thank you very much, Mr Principal Deputy Speaker. Question number 1.
Our education system has a rich diversity of school types. ESA will be a single system of administration to serve a diversity of schools. During the development and passage of the Education Bill, many people argued passionately in support of particular school types. Many members have also advocated for the interests of particular stakeholders or sectors. If we were to have a single type of school education system, what would it be? You first have to decide what your single education system would be. Then you would draw up the legislation to match the vision.
And I call Michael Copeland.
Thank you very much yet again, Mr Principal Deputy Speaker. And I note and thank the Minister for his comments about the unification in some respects of the administration. Could I ask him point blank, does he believe in a single education system where children of all faiths and none are educated together? Does he believe it's desirable? Does he believe it's feasible? And how long does he believe it would take for such a transition to take place here?
In many ways, it's irrelevant what I believe in terms of a single education system. If you want to bring forward a single education system, you're going to have to redraw the legislation. You're going to have to remove parental choice. You're going to have to then say to parents, this is the type of education system we believe in moving forward. If you ask me, do I believe children of all faiths should be educated together, the answer is yes. But the House is going to have to decide on many of these matters. Are you going to ensure that all children are taught together? Are you going to remove academic selection? Are you going to ensure that all children are treated equal, that all faiths are treated equal, that all cultures are treated equal? Because that's the type of single education system I would believe in. But remember that in many instances in this House, Assembly members have come forward and they've defended one sector over another sector or defended the right of parental choice. You need to make up your mind what you want. You either want parental choice or you want a single education system, because you cannot have both.
Call Ms McKillie Boyle.
Can I ask the Minister, would any legislative change be required to support the growth of shared education projects?
We are continuing to study the Shared Education Ministerial Report. At this stage, it doesn't appear to be that we require any significant legislative changes, but if legislative changes are required, we will come back to the Assembly with a report on that and seek those changes which would help promote shared education.
Ms Karen McKevitt.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker. Can I ask the Minister, when does he expect the ESA Bill to return to the floor of the House?
I have presented a paper to my executive colleagues in regards to amendments to the ESA Bill following the committee stage. It will be up to the executive to clear that paper, and then I will proceed with bringing the ESA Bill before the House.
Mr Mervyn Story.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Principal Speaker. The Education Minister makes reference to you can't have both in terms of shared education and parental choice. Could he maybe outline to the House when he will have further discussions with CCMS to ensure that they end the discriminatory practice of a Catholic certificate, which may be helpful in terms of assisting the issue of parental choice?
I actually said you can't have both in relation to parental choice and a single education system. You can't have shared education and parental choice in the same. The member will be aware, because I've commented to him and responded to him on numerous occasions in regards to this one. Equality duties lie with the First and Deputy First Minister. That's who needs to have a conversation with CCMS or whoever else is involved in the debate around equality measures and employment legislation. So it's a matter for OFM DFM to bring forward legislation in regards to this matter.
I call Mr Robin Swan.
Question number 2.
I last updated the Assembly on area planning on the 26th of February, and I outlined the next steps to maintain momentum and build on the work done to date in the run-up to the establishment of ESA. On the same day, the Education and Library Boards published the findings of the consultation which took place last autumn and the revised drafts of their plans for post-primary schools. The area plans for primary schools were made available for public consultation on the 19th of March. The consultation is open until the end of June. I hope that dialogue at local level will result in practical and sustainable solutions that can include proposals for increased sharing of accommodation and resources. I have established a steering group to support my department in overseeing planning until ESA is established. The group's aims will be to embed a single approach to area planning and to identify priority areas for action. The group has met twice and agreed a programme of work for the coming months. This covers the further development of the area plans and the consideration of common planning issues. Finally, I have set up a working group which will develop a regional plan for dedicated special schools provision. Area planning is a high priority for my department, and I am determined to keep the process moving forward. Only through a strategic, collective approach to planning will we ensure we are meeting the needs of all our young people.
I call Mr Robin Swan for supplementary.
Thank the Minister for his answer. Minister, there are innovative and some say radical proposals being brought forward in local area plans, such as the proposal for the controlled schools in Ballymena. How open will you be to considering such plans?
I am very open to all plans being brought forward to my department and to the managing authorities. The consultation process, I think, was valuable, particularly in terms of the post-primary sector. The primary sector one is currently ongoing. But if communities have plans of a radical nature, and I always like a bit of radicalism, I have to say, if they bring forward a bit of radical nature, then I think we're duty-bound to examine those to see how we move forward, because the communities know best their needs in terms of educational provision going into the future. So let's take a look at all those ideas.
Call Mr Gregory Campbell.
The Minister talked about a strategic outlook when he's looking at the issue of the area planning process 3 months after the February announcement. What assurance can he give the various communities across Northern Ireland with an interest in education that his view won't be hidebound by ideological views yet again?
Well, I fail to see how some parties in this chamber operate, because apparently none of them have an ideology. An ideology is a belief system. I assume the DUP have a belief system. They believe in their policies, so therefore that's an ideology. But you just bandy this word around as if it's some sort of bad word. I am proud to have an ideology. I am proud to have my ideology. Will the decisions coming forward be bound by my ideology? No, they will not. They will be guided by it, certainly. As all ministers were guided by their ideology, and I'm sure even when the member was a minister, he was guided by his ideology. Well, we hope he was. Or he was guided by something. So I will bring forward decisions based on the evidence coming forward, the consultation responses, and I will adhere explicitly to my duties under the Ministerial Code.
I call Mr Phil Flanagan.
I thank the Minister for his answer. The shuffle was a wee bit unkind to me. I'm lumped in at number 14 here. But can I ask the Minister to provide an update on how the needs of small rural schools, particularly in places like Fermanagh, will be met as part of the area planning process as it continues to roll out?
Thank you for his question. I have today met the Ulster Farmers Union to discuss the issues around rural communities and how they are affected by small rural schools and the proposals around a number of small rural primary schools and indeed post-primary schools, and they put their case across very well about the needs of rural communities, and I have said that I will continue to engage with them. I'm meeting the Agriculture Minister in a couple of weeks in regards to this matter as well. In regards proposals coming forward and alternative proposals coming forward from rural communities for Pacific areas, particularly in Fermanagh, those will be taken under consideration before any final decision is made.
Call Mr Dominic Bradley.
Curamila mai agat a fríomh las Concordia. Agus gom buchas leis an ara as ochta chuid fragri. Ach bóilam sa ifrí de cutiga nachhfuil onadiacht ag scolanna airithe grúpa stúrtha na planala cantar. Could I ask the Minister why it is that certain schools have no representation on the area planning steering group?
Going back this lesson, as a case. Which schools are you referring to? The area planning steering group is representative of the planning authorities in relation to schools. We have the control sector through the area plans through the boards. We have the Catholic sector represented under CCMS. We have the Irish medium sector represented by ING, and we have the integrated sector represented. Those are the statutory organisations which my party adheres to. If the member is now lobbying on behalf of the voluntary grammar sector, if that's what he's doing, then why not just say it out loud? I'm lobbying on behalf of the voluntary grammar sector. Well, the case is somewhat loaded, but I'm happy to inform the member and indeed the rest of the MLAs in the House that I had a useful, and I have to say a very useful discussion this morning with the Governing Bodies Association concerning their views that they should be represented on the area planning body. I have undertaken to go away and consider the points they have raised, and I will give them careful consideration, and I will respond to them in due course.
I call Mr. Pat Sheehan.
I've got case number 3, question 3, please.
I held a meeting with Minister Gove on the 13th of May, along with my counterpart, Leighton Wales, Minister for Education from Wales. I welcome the opportunity to discuss issues around GCSE, AS and A-level examinations, the regulation of 3 jurisdiction qualifications and arrangements for sharing information about policy development which affect other regions. Since our meeting, I have received a letter from Mr Gove which signalled his intention to end the current 3 jurisdiction arrangements for qualifications. As members will know, I was not at all happy that the details of this letter were leaked to the media with 1 hour of my receiving it. In response to Mr Gove, I stated it is imperative that ministers can meet and have discussions with each other, and that such discussions will remain in confidence until the recipients have an opportunity to consider the full implications. Such details should not be leaked in advance to the press by any source. On the detail of his letter, I will want to take time to consider the implications of Mr Gove's intentions. My officials will continue to liaise with their counterparts in England and Wales on qualifications issues that impact on learners here. My fundamental review of GCSEs and A-levels is ongoing, and I will continue to take decisions based on the needs and aspirations of our young people, and will ensure comparability and portability at all times of our examinations.
Call Mr. Pat Sheehan for a supplementary.
I've got a free last Concordia, August Gombuekas, Leshinara, Sokta Ragra. Thank the Minister for his answer. And I wonder, would the Minister agree with me that no single jurisdiction has the right to dictate how the GCSE and A-level brand is used either now or in the future?
Gombuekas, Lesh and Val Asakaist. Yeah, the member is right that the GCSE at A-level brand is owned between the 3 jurisdictions, England, Wales and here. And I am concerned that Minister Gove's intentions are to break up that the ownership of that A-level or A-levels and GCSE's brand. However, I cannot stop Mr Gove from doing that. If Mr Gove wishes to continue with his changes, with his policy directions, he's perfectly entitled to do so. It does not automatically mean that I, or indeed my Welsh counterpart, have to follow. We have to bring forward qualifications and examinations that meet our curriculum and meet the needs of our young people, and ensure in doing so that those qualifications are recognised and accepted in whichever part of these islands people choose to travel to, or indeed across the world. And I have no doubt we will be able to achieve that. I would much prefer that this matter was handled much more sensitively, and has ensured that the conversation which was taking place between Mr Gove and I and Mr Leighton Andrews continued before any public pronouncements were made. The public pronouncement has been made, I have to say, via a leak, which was unhelpful, but I can assure members that I will study the consultation which is ongoing and make an announcement in the future as the future direction of travel of our exams. But the key purpose of the exams is to ensure our young people are tested robustly and that they are portable in terms of recognition across these islands.
Call Mr William Humphrey.
Mr Principal Deputy Speaker, I heard the Minister making his assertion in the media last week that there was a leak. He's made the similar assertion here in the House today. Can I ask the Minister to advise the House who he believes was responsible for the leak?
Well, I can assure you it was not I, and I don't believe it was Leighton Andrews' department. The papers plainly said, and the Guardian is quoting us, said that a senior Whitehall source leaked the details of our meeting, and also showed that same journalist the contents of the letter from Mr Gove. Whom the individual was, I do not know, but I have asked Mr Gove to take action to ensure that no further leaks come out of his department which damage the working relationship between the 3 jurisdictions, and ensure that we can work together, that we do come to decisions which are of mutual benefit to all the students we serve.
I call Ms Sandra Overend.
Principal Deputy Speaker, I'd be interested to know if the Minister could detail at whose request the meeting was held, and whether he has any future meetings planned, and whether he has also had any discussions with his Welsh counterpart since.
The meeting was held at my request, and indeed the request of Mr Andrews. I There is a requirement for further discussions between the three jurisdictions at ministerial level. There is also a requirement for further discussions at official level, and that will have to continue. I have had discussions with my Welsh counterpart since, and we regularly engage with each other on the telephone and discuss educational matters, which I have to say I find very beneficial, and I will continue to do that. But there also is a requirement for three jurisdictional conversations, and those conversations at times require to be confidential, and that's the key to successful dialogue, and at times it's unfortunate that this occasion they were leaked.
I call Mr Ian McCrae.
Question number 4.
Shared education is a commitment within the programme for government, and there is already a significant degree of shared education taking place. At present, I am considering the Ministerial Advisory Group's report on shared education prior to determining the way forward to further advance shared education. However, the issue arising from shared education across many existing policy areas, and I anticipate that rather than requiring a new policy, the way forward will be to ensure existing policy areas reflect the need to advance shared education.
Call Mr Ian McCrae for supplementary.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker. Can the Minister detail whether or not he has brought forward any proposals to his executive colleagues in the executive paper with respect to the ESA bill, and which outlines any legislative provisions for shared education?
As I said, I don't believe there is any requirement for legislative changes at this time, particularly in part of the ESA bill. We are currently studying the shared education report. I intend to present the executive with an executive paper in regards to the shared education report and move on from there. But if during those discussions with the executive or other colleagues that it is believed that there is a requirement for shared education legislation, then I am happy to explore that. There is no barrier to that. But at this time, I believe that we do have the necessary policies in place to allow us to move forward as to where we are now.
I call Mr Danny Kinahan.
Thank you very much, Principal Deputy Speaker. May I thank the Minister for his answer so far. Will the Minister be planning to do a sort of audit and collate all the information as to how schools are sharing, so that we can build up a database to help other schools lead us towards a single shared education system in the long run?
I suspect it would be a significant piece of work and a significant audit. However, that doesn't rule it out. I think there is benefit to the suggestion to ensure that we learn from best practice and examples of best practice where that takes place. It's certainly one of the things I'm taking into consideration as I study the shared education report.
I call Mr Chris Hazard.
If I could just ask the Minister if he believes it's possible that we could achieve consensus on the advisory group's proposal around academic selection.
I believe anything's possible if the will is there to achieve consensus on the way forward around academic selection. But the will has to be there to ensure it happens. It's worth noting, however, that the Ministerial Advisory Group have said that 3 of their proposals refer to academic selection. The other 17 do not, and we should move ahead with the other 17 rather than simply disagreeing over the academic selection issue. But I'm happy to engage with people around the issue of academic selection to see where we can reach consensus on it.
I call Mr Sean Rogers.
Mr Deputy Speaker, and thanks to the Minister for his answers thus far. Could I ask the Minister, considering the contribution the Shared Language project at Shimla College makes to shared education across the primary schools in South Down, what plans is to seek funding for its continuance in the light of recent statements on shared education?
It's very difficult for me to answer a specific question like that. If the member wishes to write to me in regards to the activity in Shimla College, then I'm more than happy to engage with them that way. But it's impossible for me to have all that information in front of me.
I call Mr Stephen Mudry.
Question number 5.
I have said previously on numerous occasions, and let me emphasise again, schools will not be closed simply because they fall below thresholds. Where it can be clearly demonstrated that a school is needed, then it should be retained and supported to ensure the quality of education is the predominant characteristic of that school. The draft area plans for primary schools were published on the Education and Library Board's respective websites on the 19th of March. The plans are out for consultation until the end of June 2013. The Southern Education and Library Board draft area plan noted that local area solutions are to be explored for Bleary Primary School and St Mary's Primary School, Derrytrosna. Now it is time for the local communities and schools to make their views known to the Education and Library Boards. It is then for the relevant school managing authority to analyse the responses to the consultation, revise and refine the draft plans, and if appropriate, bring forward proposals to the Department of Education. The Sustainable Schools policy sets out 6 criteria to be considered in assessing a school's viability: quality educational experience, stable enrolment trends, sound financial position, strong leadership and management, accessibility, strong links with the community. Any proposal brought forward to close a school will be assessed on the basis of its own particular circumstances against these criteria.
Mr Stephen Mutry for a supplementary.
Mr Principal Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for the response. But at the end of the day, the local media headlines has disconcerted not only the staff that teach there, the parents and the pupils, and indeed the potential future pupils. Can the Minister give a timescale as to when he will come out and state that both Bleary and St Mary's will not be closing?
Well, I don't sit on the editorial board of either of the local newspapers. The member will be aware of that. And no doubt, like he, I've had many a run-in with both editors of both newspapers. Though it's not up to me what the newspapers print. I don't believe it's beneficial to the debate to be printing lists of schools who newspaper editors perceive to be under threat. It's worth noting what the actual area plans say in relation to both of these schools. The Southern Education and Library Board draft area plan noted that local area solutions are to be explored for Bleary Primary School and St Mary's Primary School, Derrytrosna. It does not state in that context that either school is to be closed. If the managing authorities for any school come forward to me with a development proposal, I will judge each school on its own merits. But instead of, I would encourage communities to look at the detail of the area plan rather than taking on board what the detail may be in the local press.
I call on Ms Judith Cochrane.
Thank you, Mr Principal Deputy Speaker. Question number 6, please.
At the end of stage 1 of the two-stage preschool admissions process, 95% of children were offered a place in a setting of their choice. While 1,030 children remained unplaced at the end of stage 1, there were 2,280 places remaining available in stage 2. Parents of 541 children chose to nominate further preferences for consideration during stage 2 of the process, which is due to complete on the 31st of May. There are a small number of areas in which the Education and Library Boards have identified a shortfall in provision, but my officials are working closely with the boards to address these issues. In some instances, this will involve bringing new providers into the preschool education programme or funding existing providers to run additional sessions. I am therefore satisfied that across the North there is sufficient funded preschool provision available to meet the demand for places in the 13-14 school year.
Ms Judith Cochrane for supplementary.
Thank you, Mr Principal Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his answer and also for the changes that have been made over the past couple of years. In my own constituency of East Belfast, a number of parents have taken the decision not to apply for a preschool place because they know that they're unlikely to secure one with the right timing or the right location as they juggle their work commitments. Can the Minister let me know, is he aware of this issue, which perhaps masks the problem of oversubscription, and also detail what measures he's taking to ensure that all children can avail of the benefits of a preschool place?
Over this last number of years, we have carried out a rigorous overhaul of the preschool settings and how parents are notified, how we administer the places, the coordination between the PEGS groups, the education boards and my department, and we are improving the situation all the time. It's difficult to respond to individual cases, but if I'm just looking at my notes here, in terms of East Belfast, as a result of, at the end of Key Stage 1, there was a shortfall of pre-places in the East Belfast area. As a result, 4 new settings were brought into preschool education programme for parents to apply to Stage 2. However, 2 of these settings have now been withdrawn due to insufficient applications. 6 children from East Belfast who stated further preferences for consideration of Stage 2 remain unplaced. Parents will be made aware that their places remain viable and available in funded settings in East Belfast when letters issued on the 31st of May. So the Department has taken significant action in East Belfast. In fact, when I note there's 2 settings had to be withdrawn because of insufficient applications is disappointing, and I will look into that matter further to ensure that it's proper location, etc., accessibility to parents, etc., etc. But we have taken significant action in East Belfast and indeed across the board areas to ensure that demand is met.
Mr Conall McDavid.
Thank you indeed, Mr Principal Deputy Speaker. Could I ask the Minister, given the level of oversubscription in some preschool settings over the past couple of years, what specific steps have been taken by the Department to ensure the programme for government commitment to, and I quote, deliver preschool education on demand will be delivered?
There has been a significant financial investment over this last number of years. And we have also, as I said in response to the previous question, overhauled how we administer and manage our preschool settings. So there has been a significant improvement of parental and pupil experience over this last number of years. When we look at a large geographical area such as East Belfast, where there's only 6 children from East Belfast who stated further preferences for consideration of Stage 2 remain in place, that is a significant improvement from years gone by. We have to continue to work with the boards, with the PEGS providers, to ensure this happens, and if further finances is required, then we will have to make the finances available to ensure that the programme for government target is met.
I call Ms Joanne Dobson.
Thank you, Mr Principal Deputy Speaker. The Department currently runs a priority of access set of criteria, and prominent in this is providing places for children from disadvantaged socio-economic backgrounds. Whilst I understand the rationale for this, does the Minister agree with me that it is subsequently often much harder for parents who are working to find a suitable place, even though they need a preschool place for their child as much as anyone else?
Well, I am glad to hear that the member understands as to why the social clauses are involved in this, because children from low economic backgrounds or socially deprived backgrounds do have more difficulties presented to them going through schools. And early intervention is about ensuring giving everyone a level playing field. In terms of the social clauses within this matter, I would like to have reviewed them earlier than current. I would like to have brought in lower paid working families under the criteria. However, we have been dealing with the implications of the Welfare Reform Bill and whether or if not it goes through the House. I have to wait on the outcomes of the Welfare Reform Bill. And then once the Welfare Reform Bill goes through, if it does go through, I will then take a look at the social clauses in regards to preschool places.
I call Mr Dahi Mackay.
Okay, Stephen Shock, question number 7.
DE will be working closely with OFM, DFM and other departments on the detailed design and delivery of the Together Building a United Community programme, and specific roles and responsibilities will be decided in due course. Given the cross-cutting remit of the programme, it is anticipated that responsibilities for a number of elements will be shared between my department and other departments.
I call Mr Dahi Mackay for a supplementary.
Can I ask the Minister, does he envisage that the work within OFM DFM will align with the ongoing initiatives to advance shared education within his own department?
I believe they will, and I think in terms of the announcement around Together Building a United Community will assist all departments who are involved in cross-community work or shared community work. So I think they complement the programmes already at play within my department, and my department will be happy to play its role in advancing them further.
I call Mr Jim Allister. There are a number of members who are on the schedule but they're not in their place. Mr Jim Allister.
Question 11.
Was that question 11?
Yep.
I am satisfied that reports produced by the Programme for International Student Assessment provide useful evidence-based information that helps inform our approach to raising standards and addressing the achievement gap in order to improve outcomes for young people. I am aware of the ongoing academic discussions on the mathematical model that the Programme for International Student and Assessment PISA uses. I understand that some recent criticism of aspects of that model have been strongly refuted by the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development. Indeed, I understand that it has pointed to several significant flaws in the evidence behind the arguments presented.
That's the end of questions.